Hello friends, today we are going to discuss constructor in Java. Constructor is a block of codes similar to the methods having same name as class name. This is first characteristics of constructor. Okay, so here we can see this is a class display and there is a block of code which is similar to method having the same name as class. Okay, so this is first characteristic of the constructor. Second is a constructor must have no explicit return type, not even void. We should not write or specify any return type for this constructor, not even void. This is second characteristic of constructor. Third is modifiers applicable for constructor are public, protected, default, and private. So here we can use only these four modifiers: public, protected, default, and private. Then next characteristic is a Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronized. So we cannot use any of these keywords here before this constructor. Then why this constructor is used? Then constructor is used to initialize object. And how this constructor is called? This constructor is called automatically when an object of class is created. So here in this class, in this main method, we have created an object of this class display D using this new keyword. So when we create an object of this class, this constructor is automatically called. And at the time of calling the constructor, memory for the object is allocated in the memory. So when we call the constructor, that time for this object, memory is allocated in the memory part, and it executes automatically when object of the class is created. So this part of the code is executed automatically. So here we see this class contains one constructor and one method. And to call this method, we have to create an object, and using that object, we can call this method. But that is not the case with the constructor. Simply when we create an object for this class, this constructor is automatically called. So these all are the characteristics of constructor. Now, question is, why do we need constructor? What is the need of constructor? So before explaining the need of the constructor, let me explain this example. Let's take one example. So here I have taken a class student, then it contains two instance variables, name and roll number. And in this class, we have created a main method. And in this main method, we have created one object of this class, student S1 assign new student. So when we create an object of this class, it means the constructor is called and these objects are initialized. And for this object, memory is allocated. So here for S1, memory is allocated and a copy of this instance variable is created for this with reference to this object. Okay. So here a copy of these two instance variable is created, name and roll number. We have not provided any value to these two instance variables. So here we have not provided any value. We have not initialized this name and roll number. So when we create an object of this class, then default value is assigned. So default value for the string is null and default value for integer is 0. So when we create this object S1, for this, the name is assigned for this one student, name assigned to null, initialized to null, and roll number initialized to 0. When we create second object, again, memory is allocated for this object and a copy of instance variable is created. And again, this name and roll number, both instance variables are initialized to default value. So name is initialized to null and roll number is initialized to 0. So here if we create, see, roll number should be unique for every student. If you are creating 10 students, 50 students, if we have in our class, every student should have a unique roll number. But if we have not given initialize any value and directly we are creating an object, then this roll number is initialized to 0 for every student. Then how to initialize an object? There are three ways to initialize object. One is using by a reference variable. Second one is by using a method, a getter setter method we can use. And third one is by using constructor. So let me show you the example for this. So we can initialize these instance variable by reference variable. So here itself we can provide value to name and to roll number. Okay. And when we create an object of this class S1, here an object is allocated in the memory and a copy of instance variable is created. And for the student S1, name is initialized to A and roll number is initialized to 1. Again, when we create a second object of the student class, again, the name is initialized to A and roll number is initialized to 1. In this way, if we have 50 students in our class, all students will have the same name and same roll number. Another way by using this reference variable is that we do not initialize this instance variable here, but once we create an object, here we initialize. So using this object, we refer these both instance variable and we assign value to this instance variable. So using this object name s1 dot name assign initialize to A and s1 dot roll number initialize it to 1. Then we create a second object and using that object, we initialize this instance variable name to B and assign roll number as a 12. Any roll number we can assign. Okay. So here this way, when a copy will be created for different objects, a different value will be assigned. This is a correct way. But in this, what will happen if we are having 50 students? So we have to repeat this process 50 times. And for every student, we have to write 2 extra lines. So if you are having 50 students, so we will have to write 100 extra lines, which is not a good programming practice. Then third way is to use constructor, to initialize using constructor. Okay, to initialize an object using constructor. So we will create a constructor of this class with the same name, and we will take these two values as a parameter here. And when we create an object of this class, that time itself, we pass both the values, both the parameters, name and roll number. When we pass these parameters, name and roll number, so this name is assigned to pass to this place, to this name, and 01 is passed to this parameter to roll number. And here we can assign the value which is received here, A and 01, to these instance variable here. This keyword is used to differentiate between a local variable and instance variable. So here this string, this name and roll number here, these are instance variable and these are local variables. And they both are having same name. So to differentiate, we are using this keyword. So this name is initialized to A and this roll number is initialized to 01. And once we are creating second object, that time we are passing two different values and the values are stored again. This name is initialized to B and roll number is initialized to 02 for second student. So in this way, we can create hundreds of the object of the same class and we can initialize them to all different values. So that is the main purpose, that is the purpose of having a constructor. Constructor is used to initialize object and we can pass parameters or we can have a constructor without parameter also, that we are going to discuss with example. And when we create an object, whatever value we are passing, that these instance variable or that object is initialized to those values. So that is the purpose of using constructor. Now let me show you one example for this. So here we can see we have taken the same example. A class student is created, two instance variable taken, a constructor which receives two parameters. So this type of constructor is known as parameterized constructor. There are three types of constructor. This type is known as parameterized constructor. And the value which is received in these parameters is assigned to these instance variables. And this keyword we are using to differentiate between these instance variable and local variable. And in the main method, we have created two objects, and we have passed name as a and roll number as a 01. For the second object, we have passed name as a B and roll number as a 02. And here we are printing both the values of student S1 name and S1 dot roll number and S2 dot name and S2 dot roll number. So let's execute this program. So when we run this program here, we can see we can get the output. Student A, the name is student 1, name is A and roll number is 1. For student 2, the name is B and roll number is 2. Okay. So now we'll discuss about types of parameters. There are three types of parameters. First is parameterized constructor. This is an example of parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor takes parameters. Okay, it can take one parameter, two parameter, three parameter, depending on its requirement. But it takes parameter. And this constructor is user-defined constructor. This is also known as user-defined because user write this code for this constructor. Second type of user-defined constructor is without parameter. So we can create constructor without parameter also. So here I'm creating a constructor which doesn't take any parameter. Okay. And here we write just we can write here. This is also known as no argument constructor, but user defined. Okay. So here we have created one constructor which doesn't take any parameter. So we can call it as a no parameter constructor or no argument constructor. And we create one more object here of this class S3, and we won't pass any parameter while creating this. So when we are passing parameters, that time this parameterized constructor will be called. And when we are passing no parameter, then this non-parameterized or no argument constructor will be called. This constructor will be called. So let's save it and execute it. So here, this is printed, no argument constructor. This line is printed. So these are two types. This is also known as no argument constructor. But this is user defined, no argument constructor. Third type of constructor is default constructor. What is default constructor? When user is not providing or writing code for constructor, that time compiler will provide a constructor automatically. So that type of constructor we call it as a default constructor, and compiler will provide default constructor without parameter. So the constructor which will be provided by the compiler will be of this type. Without any parameter. But compiler will provide default constructor only if user has not written any constructor. If user has created any constructor with parameter or without parameter, if user has created any constructor, then compiler will not provide any constructor. So when user is not writing code or providing constructor, that time compiler will provide constructor, and that constructor is known as default constructor, and that is also no argument constructor. It doesn't take any parameter. So let's delete this constructor which we have created, and let's, what we'll do, comment this parameterized constructor which we have created, and then we have to comment these lines also which are referring to those parameterized constructor. Now in this program there is no constructor provided. Okay, we have commented this part. We have just written two instance variable and we are trying to create an object. So this time compiler will provide automatically a default constructor which will be without parameters. So let's save and execute this. So it's executed, but it is not printing anything because we have not given any print statement. Okay, so this time the constructor will be provided by Java, known as default constructor. So these are three types of constructor: default constructor provided by the compiler, then user defined constructor is parameterized constructor, and no argument constructor. Now let me show you one more example program for constructor. So here we are taking a class box. It has three instance variable: width, height, and depth. Then this constructor, it takes three parameters, and those three parameters are assigned to these instance variable using this keyword. And then this class contains a method volume, which calculates volume, multiply width, height, and depth, and return that volume. And then here we are creating two objects in the main method, myBox1 and myBox2, and we are passing three parameters: width, height, and depth, three different parameters. And then we are calling this volume method to calculate the volume by using these parameters which we are passing. So when we are passing 10, 20, and 15, so here 10 is received in width, 20 is received in height, and 15 is received in depth. And these instance variable are initialized to 10, 20, and 15. Then we are calling this volume method using these objects, using myBox1 and myBox2. So when we are calling this using myBox1, then it will multiply 10 into 20 into 15 and return the volume. And when we are calling this volume method using second object, then it will pass these, initialize those instance variable to 3, 6, and 9, and volume method will multiply 3 into 6 into 9, and it will give us output. So let's execute this. And we got this output. Okay, so this is all about constructors. I hope I was able to make this concept clear for you. Thank you so much.